Before creating some of the most memorable franchises in modern gaming, Naughty Dog had already solidified their position as a PlayStation hitmaker. Amongst their portfolio includes the forgotten duo Jak and Daxter. I'm sure most of you remember the mascots in a platforming setting, but as a send-off for the series and the company as we knew it, Naughty Dog wanted to release one final entry for the 6th gen. Jak X Combat Racing is the final mainline entry to the Jak and Daxter saga, and primarily focuses on, you guessed it, racing, and yes, also combat. The racing part isn't too big of an issue, but the combat part could be troublesome. We can't just go around killing for sport. We're supposed to be the hero after all, right? What's good? I'm Saggi, and I'm here to answer the age-old question: can you complete Jak X Combat Racing without guns? Allow me to explain my restrictions, as they may not be as cut and dry as you would think. Let's start with the restrictions. I'm not allowed to use weapons. In Jak X, the weaponry system is naturally similar to Mario Kart, where you pick up an item and you get a randomized weapon. However, it differs by allocating weapons that can be shot forward to yellow eagle and weapons that can be shot backwards or for defense to red eagle. There are items that fall into a gray area like the shield, but for this challenge, all eco pickups are banned. I can still pick them up, just not use them though. Side note, there are many game modes that don't centralize racing, and those specific variants, the player is given a default weapon without needing an eco pickup, but still it's banned. Just thought I would address it. And that's really all the restrictions. I really thought there were more before writing this, but oh well. Even with that being the case, this challenge has a lot more obstacles than anticipated. There will be an omission, but we'll get to that. Let's get right into it. Starting off adventure mode, you get a story set up and you're thrown right into the tutorial. You're first shown off how to drive, of course, but inevitably, you will come upon a tutorial for using weapons. Well, run failed. Just kidding. It's something that you wouldn't think to do immediately, but all you have to do is pause and quit the event. After that, I'm off to the challenge. Of course, this is a competition, so you need to win all events. And considering there are multiple events that center around killing, I will be needing to get gold for the majority of everything. And when I mean majority, I mean everything except 1 silver. What are the events anyway? Well, I'm glad you asked. There are actually quite a few, but I'll summarize them right here. So we have Artifact Race, Capture, Circuit Race, Death Race, Death Match, Freeze Rallies, Rush Hour, and finally, the Sport Hunt. Can you guess which one of these are actually viable for the run? Well, you'll see soon enough. My first event, I quickly realized that the lack of weapons leaves you severely handicapped. Gee, I wonder how that came about. And I mean severely. Many of the weapons are lethal and will erase you with ease due to your lack of defensive usage. I immediately think, okay, I'll outrace them and make taking deaths a minor inconvenience. But just like Mario Kart, the CPU has an absurd rubber banding effect. This is the effect where the AI is adapting to how well you're doing. It also swings in your favor as well, such as giving you more powerful items the farther you are behind the competition. For many races, you will be mere moments away from being passed by another racer, or racers, should I say. Yeah, if you die, just expect to fall behind at least 2 places. So I came into this thinking that it was a good idea to try this eco list, and in my defense, you can complete races and places I did in my first race, but I need golds, and this is not gold. I don't rerun the race right away and move on just to see what I'm up against in this challenge. My next event is the Death Race. I entered the Death Race and I'm hesitant to even start the event. You're presented with weapons and enemy AI almost immediately, and from what I've previously encountered, you have to use weaponry to take down enemies. Okay, so what's my next event? Deathmatch? That doesn't sound very passive. and it's exactly what you expect it to be. A group of us fighting to the death with guns. Okay, so what's the next event? Freeze rally? Okay, now we're cooking. Or cooling. Anyway, I entered the freeze rally, and this event boils down to speed. In this mode, you collect these freeze tokens to stop time as you make it to the end of the track as fast as you can. Yes, a time attack mode with a twist. It's kinda comical that they put an actual time attack in a game with no tokens, but this is what was chosen for adventure mode. At least the speedrunners have a dedicated mode, I suppose. I beat the freeze rally by over a minute and nabbed my first gold. I don't know if I'm just really good or the time to beat was just relatively high because this is the first cup, but I don't complain and keep moving. Up next is another circuit race. Without defenses, I get hammered throughout the first lap, but I start to get my bearings during the second, and once I'm able to get in the lead, my competitors seem to chill a little bit on their aggression. I jet my way to the finish line and score myself another gold. I head back to my first race to correct my standing, and now I'm ready for the qualifier. After you accumulate enough medals, a qualifier for the Red Cup Grand Prix will be prompted and automatically send you to the event. I'm pretty sure the event is predetermined. Anywho, my first qualifier is a circuit race. The racers were giving me the business during this one. I'm not super sure how the AI operates, but it almost seems as though each racer has a randomized aggression value, but in these qualifiers, they must all have a moderately high setting, but that's just speculation. I didn't hold a long lead in this one. We were neck and neck through the entirety of the race, but I was able to squeak out a W. On to the next one. After the qualifier, more events for the cup are made available, and I move on to the next event, the artifact race. If you've played Jak 3, you may remember the beams of light that guide you towards the next collectible in the desert. Well, this operates the exact same way. There are set spawn points and only a few pop up at once, spawning new ones when they're collected. The AI doesn't seem to become aggressive unless you come too close to them or are in their line of sight. This works in my favor, so all I have to do is collect the artifacts without getting in the way of my competition. Boom, give me that gold. Now, let's get into that ambition. Our next event is an interesting one, the Turbo Dash. Power cells make a comeback from the Precursor legacy, but don't function as a collectible here. Well, kind of. Instead, they function as, well, everything. The goal of the event is to collect as many power cells as you can, but to collect them, they must be charged with turbo, so you get infinite turbo for essentially the entire race. Here's where things are shaken up a bit. There are no weapons on the stage, but when you fully charge a cell, you gain a point, but also shoot the power cell in front of you. Like a missile that can damage enemies. You also obtain a defensive item upon it being charged, but that's not what we're worried about here. So here's the thing. You need a certain amount of medals to unlock the qualifiers, which unlocks the Grand Prix finals for each cup. The problem is, this is a mode that requires me to fire, and the cup limits you to what events you can play per qualification. But there is a loophole here. The power cell technically isn't a weapon, not in lore, not in game as a yellow or red eco pickup, not even on the wiki. The limitations on which events I can choose forces me to complete this event. If you believe this invalidates the run, it is completely understandable. I will still continue, however, because even without me believing the power cell is directly a weapon, I can still avoid actually killing racers. I'll still continue, however, because even without me believing the power cell is directly a weapon, I can still avoid actually killing racers. I didn't necessarily feel good about this goal, but hey look, no kills, passive, God. I move on to the circuit race in the Icebound Citadel and smoke the competition, despite being hit with a peacemaker. Another goal down. Time for another freeze rally, no pun intended. My strat for these if you can call it that, is to try and collect all the tokens on one side of the track on one lap and finish the other side on the second. That strat is barely viable here, but I still take away the goal with 2 seconds to spare. After that dub, we're back at it with another circuit race, and boy was this a ride. The other races were pretty aggressive here, particularly Asher. There was no coasting to the finish, but rather rolling with the pack and letting them eliminate each other while I watched idly by. Even while taking deaths, the pure despise for one another on this specific track allowed me to land another win. After some debating, I choose to take on my second death race. I actually play this one and say fuck it. Let me ram into one of these bastards, and to my surprise, guns aren't actually needed. I can just bump into cars and rack up points. I make my way through the event and beat the goal by 30. Not a difficult event for me, to be honest, but man, will this statement age badly. Hot off that last event, I enter another death race, this time in the Frozen Speedway, a small loop of a track that ends relatively quickly. With that being said, I was feeling confident while gunning through the course, but when the dust settled, I only had attained bronze. The map being a small loop actually hinders my ability to veer into the AI. The cars drive slow enough for me to catch them, but fast enough to pull away during turns, which is frequent. I decide to move forward and come back if needed. The next event I encounter is similar to the previous, but different enough to be its own thing, and that thing is Rush Hour. This event was made for this challenge. The objective is simple. Cars will drive towards you, and you run into them for points. Of course, it's not so cut and dry. Green and blue cars give you points, 1 and 2 respectively, while red cars damage you. Something that both sets of cars have in common is that they can occasionally cause you to swerve, which can be a death sentence in this game. I found, however, that it isn't too difficult to readjust yourself, but I can't speak for everyone. Anyways, I explode hella cars and exceed my goal by a large margin. Gold obtained. Next, once again, I'm tossed into a Grand Prix qualifier, and it's the classic circuit race. The same as the last one, the AI is cranked up to 11 here and are showing no mercy. I spend the majority of my time in the back. Anytime I make any progress towards first, I'm set back like clockwork. Cutter was being particularly annoying, almost as if he was targeting me. And on 2 occasions at the same turn, the meanest oil slicks were placed and killed me both times. If there were any questions of the AI's intelligence, this should at least show they have some semblance of a brain, or at least a rudimentary behavior system. Despite having my ass handed to me for most of the event, I managed to pull ahead and make 1 step closer to the Grand Prix event. I unlocked more stages, and the following event I chose was the death race in Sparkus City. I ride through the level, but it wasn't exactly smooth sailing. There were plenty of turns where I could just miss groups at a time. In the end, I placed silver. I did think it over if I wanted to repeat for the gold, but I just move on and decide to come back if necessary. I take some time to evaluate my current situation. I have quite a bit of silvers and a couple of bronze medals, which isn't sufficient enough to continue to the Red Cup Grand Prix. In fact, I need to unlock a circuit race beforehand, which requires 48 medals. I have 42. We've now hit a point where I need to backtrack in order to have enough medals to move on, and thus, I start my rerun. I rewind back to my first circuit race in Sparkus, the one I did without Eco, and my peers are a bit agitated, so naturally they take out their frustrations on me, the pacifist. There is no difficulty selection, by the way, so it's hard to really determine the ability of the other competitors per event. Like I mentioned before, maybe they're given a random level of difficulty per event, but then it's coupled with rubber banding, which makes any given race interesting, to say the least. I almost get put down by Ashley, but luckily, Dark Eco activated to save my life. Oh yeah, maybe I should talk about Dark Eco. Dark Eco builds when damaging enemies, killing enemies, and taking damage, although at a slower rate. In this challenge, the only way to obtain the Dark Eco state is to tank a lot of hits. This is very uncommon in this run due to the low fill. For example, a Red Cup starter vehicle won't survive 2 barrage missiles, let alone a Dark Eco swarm of them. The only feasible way is to take hits and heal. Speaking of heals, the Dark Eco activation also replenishes your health to the max, which is practically its only use here if I get it. I run back the most recent death race and have to admit defeat. Having no offensive capabilities makes this one particularly difficult. You essentially would have to have a flawless execution, which isn't too much of a hassle on this stage, but the kicker is the timer. I always fall short of just a few points, and with that, I move on. There are more events to make up for this 1 silver. Next is the death race at the loading docks. I went with flying colors this time. I think the problem before was driving a stock whip with no upgrades. Moving forward, I come back to the frozen raceway to up my bronze to a gold in a death race. Yeah, the death race event gave me the blues during this cup, as you can see. I really think it had to do with my vehicle's lack of speed, to be completely honest, because I even grab a gold here. I suspect that upgrading my speed could give me an edge in the Sparkus death race, but I keep it going. With that being said, I decide not to upgrade my speed and go for Sparkus again and again, and bam, there's the gold. Turns out I just need to get good. On to the final circuit race of the Red Cup. This time we're in the suits, and God, do I hate future iterations of this one. The others came to play and are really gunning for first here. I take quite a few deaths where many mistakes were made by me. I died right at the home stretch, but somehow I pulled the gold out of my ass. 20 milliseconds. Now for the main event, the Grand Prix. Now I could go back and attempt to complete everything else, but 1, there are events just outright impossible without weapons, and 2, they're not necessary to progress, so I move on. This special event consists of 3 consecutive races, with each tallying a score based on your performance and is added up to decide the victor. This is where the AI shows no remorse. Despite this statement, I crush my competition in Crash City, but it does give me some foreshadowing for the next 2 races. I absolutely need to get first place, and the next contender for first is crystal clear. Jak X always makes it apparent who will be the troublemakers in any given race. Your rival per race, so to speak. You cannot let them get an inch, or you will lose them. And considering I'm not shooting shit, this would make things entertaining. My opponents up the ante and continue their unchecked aggression, though this time it's far more egregious than the previous race. There's a fair bit more warfare, and the drivers are activating Dark Eco more often. I don't know if that's a coincidence or if that's just a product of the heightened aggression, but either way, I zoom past the slowpokes and finish strong. Final race, let's go. The final track is unique, where it's a mishmash of multiple stages into one. It's a 5-minute race with 1 lap, no second lap to recuperate. The computer holds on to its precious aggression of the other 2 races and keep up the pressure. Just because I'm winning doesn't mean I should let my guard down, not even for a second. I thoroughly enjoyed burning rubber on this track and despise the rubber banding. I swear sometimes I feel like the moment I touch first place, a peacemaker just launched into me. I take quite a few deaths here and have to deal with UR on my ass for most of the race, just like the others. Still, my gaming prowess was greater and I steal the Grand Prix gold. After the strong finish, I'm awarded with Class 2 vehicles and ready for the next challenge. You know we gotta start off with a good old circuit race, but beforehand, I used some extra chains to upgrade my street grinder and get to it. I have a hiccup and an encounter with an intriguing mechanic halfway through the first lap. We're not using weapons, but occasionally you'll get the ultimate weapon when far behind, similar to a blue shell, bullet bill, etc. This weapon is none other than the Supernova, making a return from Jak 3. It kills every racer in front of you and prolongs their respawn. if you use it. But what happens if you don't use it? Oh. After that mishap, I crawl my way back forward, death after death. This isn't a blowout race, but I get my gold medal and proceed. I'm hit with a Grand Prix qualifier and for the first time in the Green Eco Cup. And it isn't a circuit race, but an artifact one. In anticipation of getting thrashed, I upgrade my armor and head in. I don't have the most amazing start to this event. Come to think of it, I was just doing flat out terrible on this event. The map wasn't really my cup of tea for starters. On top of that, the map wasn't exactly the smallest and was quite irritating to navigate considering the constantly changing spawns of the artifacts and the restrictive nature of the level. Sig held down a massive lead, but for whatever reason began to become stagnant, which gave me the perfect opportunity to rack up points and steal the gold. Perseverance is my first, middle, and last name. I move into my next challenge, which is a freeze rally. Nothing to write home about except for this small instance where instead of the game resetting me when flipping upside down, I was manually flipped, where I was spontaneously killed moments later due to the game thinking I was going backwards, I guess. Oh yeah, so if you drive backwards in this game, you'll just outright be killed. No discussion, which makes the situation all the more fucked because I wasn't even driving. I was literally in the midst of the car flipping. Anyhow, I was still able to grab myself to go regardless of this bullshit. Next up is a circuit race. Again, I start to notice a pattern where I am primarily killed by Ashlyn and Color. Not just in this race though, but through my entire journey thus far. I take a couple deaths that have me narrowly crossing the checkered line at first. The next race, I'm not so lucky. I have an okay start, but it quickly plummets into madness, and by the end, I take a crucial death and end up in third. That's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. Second time's the charm, right? I run through it again with a pretty solid start and a great race overall, but I couldn't hold on to that luck forever. I get even closer to the line than last time and have my victory snatched away as the taste is about to enter my mouth by none other than Ashlyn. I actually placed even worse this time, not even earning a medal. Oh right, it's third time's the charm. Boom, that's what I was looking for. I come across a death race in the death drone and I kill it per usual, but then run into one of the most unique events in the game. I think I might have spent the most time on this singular event alone, the sport hunt. The premise is simple, kill the metalheads, get points, win. You'd think that would be easy and you'd be right, if I were using guns. The problem here is that there's more than one problem. The bitches don't have a set path and can branch into any of the predetermined paths they do have at their discretion. There's barely any turbo on the map to even keep up with them in the first place. And on top of that, you have other combatants shooting at them too, as well as them stealing your kills. First time around doesn't go so smoothly. I go for attempt number 2 and I'm beginning to learn the pathing of the creatures, but even with this, my kills are being stolen and this is causing the metalheads to spawn all the way on the other side of the map, losing me time. This time I get a bronze medal. Better. But I need at least a silver. I focus on one path and go back and forth to get easy kills and finally land a silver, second to Ashlyn. I honestly don't know what the fuck her problem is during this entire no gun run. I guess she's really unhappy with me bending the rules. In Canyon Run, I take on another rush hour event that's now available to me and get the gold with ease. The next event is a different story. Holy god damn did I blow ass in this stage. In my first attempt, I got the lowest placing ever since the run's inception, coming in last. I took a lot of unnecessary deaths as well as having to deal with the ever-growing aggression of the other racers. Of course I run it back. I do better this time, even while taking deaths. All was well until I completely fumble my hard-earned bag at the last stretch of the race. I get a bronze, but that's not good enough. Again, I come in strong with my next attempt and come out on top. See, just takes a little doing. I get some much needed R&R and practically handed the next Death Race medal. Piece of cake. I do a race in the Badlands and do not repeat my previous flops in the other race. I beat the competition by an entire 4 seconds and get the gold. I finish up a death race in the jungle and immediately I'm greeted with the second Grand Prix qualifier of the Cup. And luckily, it's just a circuit race. Thank God it wasn't a death match or some shit. The 1 lap qualifier is for sure gonna give me a run for my money, right? Wrong. I replicate my Badlands performance and beat the Slowpokes by 4 seconds. When there's a lack of angry racers on the track constantly killing, I seem to be able to place first much easier than usual. That's not to say this is easy in any sense. You saw what just happened a couple races ago. Right afterwards, my hand is forced into doing yet another turbo dash. I, against my will, charged some cells and landed myself in first. I may have won, but at what cost? I enter Heavy City and on my first attempt don't do so terribly, but end up behind Sig for a silver. I go on for some more, but this time I somehow do incredibly worse and don't even get a medal. I race yet again through the city streets and end up with the gold. A reoccurring pattern from my L's is that I almost always get it on my 3rd try. Maybe that's how long it takes me to get the hang of the more obtuse events? Couldn't tell you. I'm hit with a new artifact race event and pass with flying colors and set myself up for the final normal event. I cruise through the Western Tour and of course I run into problems along the way. It's an elongated 1-lap stage that gives your opponents ample time to strike. Right beforehand, however, I maxed out my armor stack and to my surprise, it actually proves to be effective at increasing my survivability. I make it to the end and you just know Ashland is hating. But that armor upgrade saved my ass here, leaving me with enough vitality to cross the line and win my last and final gold of the Green Eco Cup. Let's get that Grand Prix busting, shall we? Remember, the Grand Prix event consists of 3 races, all increasing in difficulty as the event goes on. Even with the difficulty, I do not falter. My first race is a breeze, netting me the first place position. My second race is in the mountains, and despite the crazy rubber banding of the game, I prevail and enter the final tour of the Green Eco Cup, the Northern Tour. I start off pretty strong, but one bad turn sees me eating my competitors' dust. The precursors try to show me pity by throwing me a nuke, which of course fucking backfires. I'm in the back in 6th, but I don't let that discourage me. I continue with maximum effort and nail the final race. I'm taking home the Green Eco Cup Grand Prix gold, bitch. No time for jubilation just yet. I press forward into the Blue Eco Cup, and the first event is a long ass tour. This is off topic, but why is the Blue Eco Cup the 3rd cup and not the final one? Since Blue Eco gives you speed, I thought it would make more sense for it to be the final cup because it would have to be the fastest. I guess Yellow Eco is a projectile, which could be faster than the Blue Eco conduit. I don't know, maybe I'm just overanalyzing. I dropped 70k on upgrading my first new whip and let the races begin. After 5 straight minutes, the race is over and I come out on top. A great way to start off the cup. I continue my streak by taking the Golden Canyon run and head right into a death race. This is one of my favorite events, so it goes without saying that I yet again take home the gold. I'm on fire right now. But that's not all. I keep smoking shit in the artifact race and keep up the momentum through a freeze rally. I was expecting the difficulty of the game to rear its ugly head here, but to me, the biggest hurdle thus far has been the AI, the racers specifically. When there is just a goal that exempts AI combatants, I'm usually confident enough to execute with a decent level of skill. I'm feeling good about my quintuple win streak and decide to switch out cars from one I was just awarded. I like new things, but I think I'll stick to the Javelin, my baby. The game is all like, oh, you've been winning, huh? There's a couple of long-ass northern tours to slip you up. And slip up I did. Yet again, I get to the final moments of the race and victory slips from my grasp. Cleaver takes this turbo which solely costs me the gold. I almost fail again when a barrage of missiles come my way, but I luckily dodge some of the onslaught and I'm able to get my win. My streak may have ended, but I'm still looking good, medal-wise. Without time to recuperate, I'm off to the next Grand Prix qualifier, and it's a freeze rally for the first time. The game is taking the Grand Prix qualifier could be any event approach, and that makes me uneasy due to the lack of control. But I press on. In a blink, the event is over, and the gold is mine. One of the easier qualifiers I've encountered thus far. My next event is a new one, Capture. The goal is to take the power cell to your base while stopping the opposing team. Literally capture the flag. The only problem is, I can't shoot. So when my team gets the cell, I can't defend them, and if our opponents get a hold of it, I can't go on the offense. The best I can do is attempt to grab the power cell every time and get the points myself. This naturally proves to be difficult with 5 others trying to take the objective, as well as actually having protection. Remember, I'm not using defensive items either, so I just have to pray I don't get hammered while jetting towards my base. The AI is supremely unreliable to the point where they just circle around the goal with the power cell until one of the enemy kills them and takes it. I held my weight and then some and still got my gold. We're back at it again with another race, and it's here where I realized that the game is increasing its map sizes. The races went from being 2 minutes to 4 minutes long, opening up more margins for error and inevitably a loss. Despite that acknowledgement, I keep a steady lead and smash them with a 4-second lead. This is the 3rd time I've won with a 4-second lead, and I'm starting to think that that's the maximum the game will allow the AI to fall behind, but that's just speculation. For my prowess, I'm awarded the fastest car in the game, and I move into my next death race, but only amount to a silver on attempt 1. By a singular point, I run it back and I win just barely enough. Okay, Naughty Dog, now the difficulty is starting to show. I jump into a freeze rally and of course with the fastest car, I rip past the finish line and take my gold. I am yet again forced to enter a turbo dash. Considering my speed, I actually don't have to worry about damaging anyone. So my cells just fly off into the sunset. An odd occurrence I ran into was that even though I had near full health and a power cell to eat the damage here, UR86 was still able to completely erase me. I'm unsure if this is by design or it's a bug, but either way, it fucking sucks. After a couple hiccups, I still managed to pull out the goal by a point, not even tripping about that one being close. Next is a smooth death race that hardly gives me trouble at this point, but I still overdo my part just to make sure I win the gold. Coming up is yet another circuit race qualifier. I expect to take the dub first try, but fate had other plans. I do not falter and I go again. I make one too many mistakes and do worse by landing the bronze. You know how this goes by now. 3rd time's a charm. Boom, bam, gold every time. I tell you, every time. Up next is a freeze rally, and this stage has a bit of foreshadowing for me. As I'm racing, this track in particular has the most constant, winding, and uneven track that I've raced in thus far. I spend most of the race trying to get my bearings. Nonetheless, I indeed get the gold and move on. Another death race, just another day in the office, golds baby. With this out of the way, I'm prepared for the Blue Eco Cup Grand Prix. Starting off in the sewers. This is pretty much what feels like the worst stage to me. And also, Razor is a major asshole here. When given the chance, he will be leagues ahead of the rest of the racers. Without any offense, I have to rely on the other racers to take him down and allow me to pull ahead. The first race is down and the gold is mine. The next race, things take a very interesting turn. The competition is stiff and won't give me an inch. At the end of the frozen race, UR80 bitch slams me down with a swarm of missiles, which sets me back to 3rd. I then proceed to push Razor across the finish line, and that solidifies my 3rd place ranking. The crazy part about that hiccup is that now You are, me, and Razor are all tied for first place. The most interesting Grand Prix thus far. The final race is a Deathdrome Seaport Strip hybrid, and this gives me the chance to melt my enemies. My sheer speed was enough to keep me ahead by 3 seconds and land me the Blue Eco Cup Grand Prix Gold. We're almost there, ladies and gentlemen, but trouble sits over the horizon as we make our way to the final cup, the Yellow Eco Cup. We start off the cup with a good old circuit race, but this time there's a catch. The race that set the framework for the challenge. In this specific race, Jak's guns are jammed due to Razor's tampering with his vehicle, so the game intends for you to go the entire race without using weapons. This would be spooky if I hadn't had 3 cups of preparation. To me, this is just another race, and even with his best efforts to sabotage, I still take the gold. Maybe should have went for the turbo, Razor. I start up a death race and I managed to clip out of the map not too long after starting. Fucking terrific. To add salt in the wound, I ended up with a bronze. Time to rerun it. I run it back and I get my gold, just barely though. The margin for error is becoming much more thin now. That being said, I hop into a rush hour and get an easy gold, and I'm greeted with a Grand Prix qualifier. I thought this was going to be a race, just assuming shit, but my qualifier is a death race, and they know they fucked up. I beat the fuck out of this event, making me 1/3 of the way finished. I start up a circuit race in the sewers, and man, is this not what I expected. I get smoked out by the competition and don't even place, landing in 4th. I give it another go and die left and right during the first lap. I make it to the end and just barely miss first, losing to Ashlyn by a fraction of a second. I shall not falter. With this time, I end the 3rd times the charm streak and land myself a bronze. The combination of aggression and the constant winding turns of the track really layers on the difficulty here. You can't stop using turbo for too long or you'll get passed. And you can't constantly use turbo or you'll crash upon trying to drift. This is for sure the first time I had some real trouble during the run. I run it again and repeat my 3rd place act again. This time the race went smoother, just took some unlucky deaths at inopportune times. For the 5th try, I come harder than before and squash the rest. The gold is finally mine. Next up is a freeze rally that I for sure thought I would have problems with, but actually, I managed to get the gold on my first attempt. Here's where I start experimenting with different cars, but the only real difference is the stat roll. Mind blowing, right? The next event I pick is Rush Hour, and it does end up getting close because I missed so many cars coming through, but even so, I end up getting the gold. I keep the Rush Hour energy going into Sparga City, and I replicate my success. Another goal for the record books, boys and girls. I hit the next artifact race, and it's a short endeavor. The competition gets their back blown out. I reluctantly initiated the capture event, and to my surprise, it went well. I carried the whole team, but yeah, Lee was unrivaled. This next shit right here, this fucking death race, oh boy. I'm already in flashbacks. Remember like 3 events ago, I took like 5 tries to get first place in a circuit race? Well, that stage is back. It's back with a damn vengeance. Not gonna lie, I tried this event so many times, and no matter what I did, no matter what adjustments I made, I could not for the life of me get the gold. I came within 3 points of the gold, and that would be my highest score, achieving the silver. I spent an actual hour and some change failing over and over and over. I changed cars, upgraded cars, slowed down, sped up, but nothing was getting me that first place standing. Luckily for me, and I wish I had acknowledged this about 10 minutes ago, I could afford 1 silver in the cup, and by golly, this was gonna be the one, god damn it. I was not gonna pull out my fucking hair over this shitty ass stage just for a fucking gold. Fuck that. I'm moving the fuck on. See, I'm pissed off all over again. I move on to a more suitable event to my nature. Yup, the tried and true circuit race. I of course died to a peacemaker, but that's to be expected. I still catch a dub and proceed. I'm thrown into one of my last Grand Prix qualifiers, and of course it's an artifact race. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's not exactly my favorite event. This is my first time ever playing this map, so it goes without saying that I don't know it too well. Whatever, I still give my sons a nice spanking. My next challenge is a freeze rally. Well, challenge is a flattering word, because I flatline this event. Flying colors. Come to think of it, freeze rallies have never really been a problem for me. One of the more rare events pops up again, capture. And man, do I hate carrying AI in this game. Playing with incompetent bots is as bad as, if not worse, than escort missions. And this is damn near both of these. We do abysmal the first time around, not even getting a goal. The enemy cars would beat me to the spawn of the power cells, and when my team would get the cell, they would die and let the blue team score again. Take a closer look to see why my AI is ass and theirs is god tier. Turns out one of the blue team members runs the cell to their base while the others camp the damn spawns. My team, on the other hand, is having a hard time even pursuing them. As I try to hold us together, we scrub by with a single goal lead and take home the W. See? Just gotta bitch a little. Yet another death race for your guy, and of course I kill shit. Even though I started to notice how much faster the cars were than the vehicle I was using. I guess the top speed actually matters now. I almost do a turbo dash thinking it was the only choice, just to find out that I had unlocked another circuit race. I make it to the last moments of the track, and some wannabe racing rap bastard bitch decides to put their meanest oil slick and causes me to go careening off the map, right after being killed by a peacemaker. Didn't even know that could happen. Oh yeah, I need my run back. Now, at this point, everyone is a problem. I see at least 6 peacemakers get shot in a matter of 30 seconds at one point. Of course, yours truly is in the front most of the time. Boom, 5th place again. These bitches came, and they came to play. Let's go then. They start again with the peacemakers, although not as aggressively as last time. I think this may have had a lot to do with the win, but who cares? I dusted their asses. With that out of the way, it is time. No more small events. It's time for the final obstacle, the Yellow Cup Grand Prix. In this final triple stack race, we get to see the last entry into the racing scene, GT Blitz. Now for those unaware, Blitz is the announcer for 90% of the game, while the other belongs to his co-host, Pepper. Now with weaponry, most of the game is a breeze, at least for me. Can't speak for everyone, but when you add a handicap like this, many things become very apparent, such as Blitz being the best AI racer in the game by far. He is literally a god if he goes uncontested, and all I can do is watch as he light speeds his way miles ahead of the pack upon making a single mistake, let alone taking a death. I know I just hyped his ass up, but I did whoop him in the first race. We were neck and neck for sure, but there are just techniques that human drivers can snap on that computers just can't compete with, such as shortcuts, hilariously enough. With that being said, I get the race in the Eastern Tour, which of course has 0 shortcuts. On top of that, it's a mix of what I believe are the worst fucking stages in the game. I do absolutely terrible here and take one of my most pathetic losses yet with a 6th place standing. Remember, during Grand Prix events, you need to earn enough points to make the number 1 spot in the end. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to get first in every event, but the problem is the only way I could win in my current circumstances is if GT Blitz got 5th and I got first in the final race. The problem wouldn't be getting first place, but getting Blitz to suck so much ass that he lands in 5th. With that realization, I reset the event. But oh, not just that race. I have to restart from the very beginning. Grand Prix are one big event, so restarting at any time will restart you from the first of the 3 races. How absolutely delightful. I rerun the Grand Prix and smoke Blitz again in the first race. The 2 brain cells I have start to churn and I think, I have to get first place in all of these. The other racers are for sure competent, but Blitz isn't even in the same league in regards to speed. No matter the situation, he always crawls his way back to the front of the line. This race goes better, but the track is indeed as shitty as I left it the last time. I do take less deaths, but I replicate the atrocious 6th place standing and restart once more. On the first race, something odd came to pass. Blitz takes a death from a peacemaker and gets passed by most of us. This time, he doesn't have time to catch up and actually ends up in 3rd place. I still do awful in the second race and reset, albeit I might have been able to pull out a win out of my ass since Blitz placed in 3rd in the first race. I didn't even consider it, I was just so frustrated. I run it back again and I still do great on the first race. Blitzman doesn't fuck it up this time around and comes in 2nd. Now here's where the challenge gets nuts. I still die quite a bit, but this time I twist my cap and F-Zero my ass right into 3rd place. Get this though, Blitz places 2nd and Razor gets 1st, and they fucking tie for the 1st place standing. There's no 2nd place. Doing quick math, I deduced that getting 1st doesn't spell complete doom because GT just needs to fuck up enough not to tie with me, which of course means he can't get in 2nd place. I say fuck it and take my chances. Here we are in Death Drone, the final race in the game. I pump my ass down the track, eating all the missiles the rubber banding ass AI has to offer, swallowing all the peacemakers they serves my ass, and coming across the line in 1st. Something peculiar happens here for sure, so it shows that I obtained a silver, but me and Blitz tie for 1st. Might be a bug. It's also announced that I'm the Crash City Grand Champion, boy. No guns. Well, hold on. Hold your horses. Wait, you didn't think it was over, did you? Alright, so plot summary dumb. Jak and the gang are poisoned and coerced into racing in this death race ass tournament because Crew's dead baby ass wants the tournament and that much more dominance over the crime underground. We're up against his rival gang run by a crime lord, Mizo. After losing, GT Blitz throws a fit and reveals that he's actually indeed Mizo. Ooh, shocker, right? What the fuck does that have to do with anything? Well, Mizo takes the poison antidote and we need to chase him down and kill him. You know, with the guns. I think back and I know previously that there were events that I could ram into cars and destroy them. So that's the plan. Tackle his Barney Mobile driving ass to death. My first couple of rounds whiff or just tickle him. He's going pretty fast after you've seen the Grand Prix, but I do get a decent bump on him, but did you see it? Let me help you a bit. Yeah, that's the type of shit I'm dealing with. And that would be fine if this wasn't a time thing. You have to kill him before he makes it to a certain spot on the map or the mission fails. I try to find ways to damage him more with ramming when this happens on attempt number 5. That's right, I was able to throw him off course and out of the map, bypassing his health bar completely. With Mizo biting the dust and the antidote secured, we have our answer. Can you beat Jak X combat racing without guns? The answer? Yes. I was a bit nervous about this encounter in particular when starting this run, but I wouldn't have imagined that I would beat him in such a manner, and so quickly at that. There really is no guide to doing this, so I didn't know if a death match or some other shit would pop up and kill the run, but I knew racing could be done without killing for sure. Anywho, thank you all for tuning in. I'm Saggi, and I'm also out.